Welcome to the Aviation Insurance Podcast, the podcast that helps aircraft owners and aviation businesses learn and understand the complex world of aviation insurance and risk management. From the basic principles of aviation insurance to risk management techniques and updates on the aviation insurance market, the Aviation Insurance Podcast is your guide to traverse the world of aviation insurance. Now, here's your host, Tim Bonnell.
Well, welcome to the Aviation Insurance Podcast, where we talk about the fundamentals of aviation insurance. And we are in part 3 of a series on aircraft or aviation insurance considerations when traveling internationally. And if you haven't listened to part 1 or 2 in this series, I'd encourage you to hit pause and go and listen to those first, because in part 1, we talk about some of the foundational issues that need to be addressed when traveling internationally in our aircraft. And then in the next part 2, I guess I would say, of this series, we addressed some issues that are related to flying in or above certain countries, because each country may have some specific regulations. And here in part 3, I want to talk about some other coverages and policies that should be considered when traveling internationally. As I've explained in part 1 and 2, there are companies that specialize in helping aircraft operators travel internationally, and I'd encourage people to use that in order to keep in compliance with all the various local laws of those countries you'll be flying in and over. And so that would be a great benefit. But from an insurance perspective, there's a few other things that we can look at. First, there are specific travel insurance products out there, but from a general perspective, we can purchase what's called a foreign liability package or a foreign package policy that grants some of our business coverages when we are traveling in international countries or have employees doing so. This could extend coverages like general liability, extended workers' compensation, include some auto liability while renting cars or while doing various business activities internationally for a short period of time. If you have permanent overseas activities, then probably would need to be looking at an international policy applicable to the country where the business is being conducted. But a foreign package policy would be able to extend some of the coverages that may end basically in at the borders of the United States into the other country. Another consideration is making sure your workers' compensation policy has what's called the foreign voluntary coverage on it. What that does is it helps to provide repatriation expenses in the event you or an employee gets sick or has a fatal occurrence overseas. It pays that cost to repatriate or bring yourself or your body or your employee's self or body back into the United States while traveling. So foreign voluntary coverage, that's one of the things it does on your workers' compensation policy. Depending on where you travel, another policy to consider is a kidnap and ransom liability policy. You've all seen the movies or heard the news where someone was kidnapped and held for ransom, and there actually is an insurance policy that helps to provide not only the finances to pay a ransom, but obviously the expertise people involved in that. So a kidnap and ransom policy would be another really strong consideration. Again, some of these international travel companies will have some specialty policies to address some of these issues. Obviously, if you have people traveling internationally regularly, you want some of these coverages and policies in place year-round. So it really depends on the international travel exposure that your operation or your company has. But there are other policies that will step in and provide important coverages needed when traveling internationally. Again, including kidnap and ransom, including those foreign liability, the business auto type of coverage, the general liability internationally, making sure that workers' compensation has some extension of coverage internationally in that, and that foreign voluntary coverage under the workers' compensation that includes the repatriation. Again, use a specialist when traveling internationally, but make sure that you know the insurance policies that you have in place cover you for those exposures, and that you are addressing all local regulation and requirements from an insurance perspective, in addition to a non-insurance perspective. Planning in advance and working with someone who can help you to make sure all these things are straight will avoid a lot of headaches and worse when taking your aircraft outside of the United States to an international destination. Well, that'll conclude our international travel considerations. Again, this is just a high-level overview of some of the key considerations. There's a lot more to it, so as you do it, again, the specialist would be the way to go. Well, that's all for this series and this episode, so join us again next time as we continue navigating the waypoints in aviation insurance. Until then, enjoy clear skies and unlimited visibility.
Thanks for listening to the Aviation Insurance Podcast. If you found this episode of value, please share it with someone who would benefit from this information. Don't forget to subscribe in your podcast player so you don't miss any new episodes, and to help our show have more impact. This episode is brought to you by Aeris Insurance Solutions, your flight plan for navigating the turbulence of aviation insurance. For more information, visit aerosinsurance.com. That is www.aerisinsurance.com. Disclaimer: these episodes are for educational purposes only, and due to the changing regulatory and legal nature of the business, some information may change over time. Having a well-educated and experienced aviation insurance broker on your team is an absolute requirement to success in business and for managing your aircraft and aviation business risks.